This is chapter 2, lesson 1, and the title of this lesson is percent of a number. So in this chapter, our essential question will be how can percent help you understand situations involving money? Okay? So if we scan the lesson, and this will be the outline of our lesson. This will be the two objectives that we will be tackling for this lesson. First one is find the percent of a number. And the second one is use percents greater than 100%. So let's take a look at this real world link and see this works. Some students are collecting money for the local pet shelter. The model shows that they have raised 60% of their 2000 goal of $1,200. So where are they getting that? So they are getting it from this table right here, and this table where you can see 1,200 right over here. Okay, 1,200. Hold on. My pencil is not connected. Hold on. Okay, it should be connected now. So we have 1,200 and that's 60%. That's where they're getting that from. Some students are collecting money for a local pet shelter. The model shows that they have raised 60% of their 2,000 goal or 1,200. Okay, so that's the first thing that they give you. And what it's asking at the bottom is that number one, fill in the decimal and fractional equivalents for each of the percent shown in the model. So let's do number one first. Let's take a look at the table. You have the percent, okay, which is 100%, 80%, 60%, 40%, 20%, and 0%. So the first one has been given to us. Okay, so for $2,000, the 100% of $2,000 is actually as a decimal is equal to 1, and as a fraction is equal to 5 over 5, or simply 1. Okay, now why is it 5 over 5? Because if you notice, you have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, uh, 5 rows of percents. That means this has been divided into 5 parts. That's the reason why it's 5 over 5 or 1. Okay, so let's take a look at the second one, $1,600. It is also 80% of $2,000. As a percent, okay, remember how we convert this into a decimal. 80%, okay, as a uh, fraction is actually 80 over 100. Okay, and if you convert that into a decimal, another way of doing that is you get your 80 and you simply move your decimal 2 spaces to the left, which will give you 0.80. As a fraction, we started it as 80 over 100. Okay, and if we get the simplest form of 80 over 100, which is actually, okay, we can break this down as 8 over 10. In simplest form, this is actually 4 over 5. Okay, 60%. Again, we follow the same rule. 60%, 0.60. As a fraction, it's 60 over 100. Okay, in simplest form, it is 3 over 5. 40% is 0.40 as a decimal. As a fraction, it's 40 over 100. Again, when we simplify that, this becomes 2/5. Okay, 20% is 0.20. Okay, as a decimal, as a fraction, that's 20 over 100, or simply 1/5. Okay, and 0% is nothing more than 0.0, okay, or simply 0 right there. It's given to you. Okay, now again, let's recall what we just did. So basically what happened is that 100%, okay, of 2000, okay, 80% of 2000 is 1600, 60% of 2000 is 1200, 40% of 1000 of 2000, I'm sorry, is 800, 20% of 2000 is 400, and 0% of 2000 is simply 0. And these are all the decimal equivalents right here. And these are all the fraction equivalents of our percent. So knowing all that, let's use the model, okay, to two multiplication sentences that are equivalent to 60% of 2000, which is equal to 1200. So if we look at our model carefully, we know that 1200, okay, is 60% of 2000, okay? So we can actually write down 0.60, which is the decimal form of 60%, and we multiply it by 2000, which will give us 1200. Okay, another way of writing this is we know for a fact that 60% is also 3/5 as a fraction. So we can also say that 3/5 times 2000 is also 1200. So those are two multiplication sentences that are equivalent to 60% of 2000. Now take note of this. The word of, okay, is synonymous to the multiplication sign, okay, in our two sentences. So the word of is translated into multiplication. Okay, let's go on to the lesson proper. So find the percent of a number. And in our lesson, it's saying percents that are, to find the percent, okay, to find the percent of a number such as 60% of 2000, you can either use uh, each of the methods. So the first method is that you can write the percent as a fraction and then multiply. That's what we did here. We wrote it as a fraction right here, and then we multiplied it with 2000. We came up with 1200. The second method, okay, is to write the percent as a decimal, then multiply. And that's what we did here too. We wrote it as a decimal. We know that 60% is 0.60 multiplied by 2000 gives you 1200. So those are the two ways to find the percent of a number, okay? And let's see how this works. Let's take a look at example number 1. So if we want to find 5% of 300 by writing the percent as a fraction. So let's use this method right here, okay? So this method we are going to use, write the percent as a decimal, then multiply, for example, number 1, okay? So first, we write 5% as 5 over 100. Remember, when you talk about the word percent, it's by the hundreds. So the denominator will always be 100. And we get 5 right over there. So it's 5 over 100. And we simplify 5 over 100 will give us 1 over 20. So we know that 1 over 20, okay, is the same as 5%. So using the fraction method, we get 1 over 20 of 300. Remember, of is always translated into multiplication, and that's where we get our next line, our next step right there. Okay, let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so here we know that 1 over 20 of 300. Okay, again, the word of is translated into multiplication, becomes 1 over 20 times 300. Okay, we simplify that by cross canceling. So the greatest common factor of 20 and 300 is 20. So 20 divided by 20 is 1. 300 divided by 20 is 15. So after that, we simply multiply we simply multiply 1 times 15, okay, which is this one right here, and 1 times 1, which is this one right here, okay. By doing that, we end up with 15 over 1, or 15. So 5% of 300 is equal to 15, okay. Let's take a look at example number 2. We want to find 25% of 180 by writing the percent as a decimal. So this time we are going to use the first method, this method right here. Okay, write the percent as a fraction. Okay, then multiply. Sorry, that's example number 1. We are going to use this method. I'm sorry. Write the percent as a decimal, then multiply. This is actually what we use in example number 1. This is now what we're going to use for example number 2. Again, example number 2, find 25% of 180 by writing the percent as a decimal. So in example number 1, I actually switched it around. Example number 1, we actually used this one, write a percent as a fraction, and then multiply. Example number 2, we are going to use this, write as a percent as a decimal, and then we are going to multiply. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. So the first thing we need to do, okay, is write 25% as 0.25. Okay, we know that uh, when you have 25%, the way to put it as a decimal is that you simply have to move your decimal 2 spaces to the left. So your 25%, okay, get your 25, move the decimal 2 spaces to the left. The decimal is at the end, so you end up with 0.25. And we simply have to multiply 0.25 then and 180. So using our multiplication skills, we'll set this up vertically. 180 times 0.25. Remember that there are 2 decimal places. Okay, so we first use 5 multiplied by 0, 8, and 1. We end up with 900 right here. And we get the number 2, multiply 0, 8, and 1. We end up with 360. Add them up, we get 45.00, and these are your 2 decimal places right here. So these 2 decimal places, okay, actually, okay, translates down here. So the answer should be 4,500, but since there are 2 decimal places, it becomes 45. Okay, so 25% of 180 is nothing more than 45. Okay, now do the guided problems and let's see if you understand examples 1 and 2. Let's take a look at example number 3, but before we do that, okay, we are going to our second objective, use percents greater than 100%. So in this case, percents that are greater than 100% can be written as improper fractions, mixed numbers, or decimals greater than 1. Again, if it's greater than 100%, we can write it as an improper fraction, which is the sum of a whole number and a fraction. Okay? Sorry, improper fraction is when your numerator is greater than your denominator. Your mixed number is the sum of a whole number and a fraction. okay? And you have decimals greater than 1, meaning you have a whole number, then a decimal, okay? So these are decimals greater than 1, you have a whole number, then a decimal after that, okay? So let's take a look at the example in here. The example given here is when you have 150%. 150%, okay, convert that into a fraction is 150 over 100. Put it in simplest form, it becomes an improper fraction of 3 halves. Actually, 150 over 100 is already an improper fraction. Simplify that, becomes 3 over 2. Again, your numerator is greater than your denominator, so that is your improper fraction. And of course, our improper fraction can be converted into a mixed number, which is 1 and 1/2. And our mixed number can be also converted into a decimal, which is 1.5. So again, percents greater than 100 can be written as improper fractions, mixed numbers, and decimals greater than 1. If you notice, 1.5 is a decimal greater than 1. So let's see how this works in example number 3. Find 120% of 75 by writing the percent as a fraction. So first we are going to use method number 1. Okay, we want to write the percent as a fraction, and that's what it's asking us to do. So write 120% as 120 over 100. Okay, that's the improper fraction. Simplest form is 6 over 5. Okay, then we want to find 6 over 5 of 75. Remember, of is always translated into multiplication. So basically what happens there is that you get 6 over 5, which is the fraction form of 120%. Okay, of 75 becomes 6/5 times 75. Okay, and using our cross-canceling skills, we can cross-cancel the 5 and 75 because they have a greatest common factor of 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 75 divided by 5 is 15. Okay, and then we simply multiply 6 times 15 and 1 times 1. We end up with 90 over 1, or simply 90. So 120% of 75 is 90. Okay, let's take a look at example number 4. Find 150% of 28 by writing the percent as a decimal. Now we are going to use method number 2. We are going to write the percent as a decimal to find 150% of 28. Okay, so again, this is a percent greater than 100. So the first thing we need to do, write 150% as 1.5, then find 1.5 of 28. Now, if you are wondering where we got 1.5, remember how to convert a percent into a decimal. You get 150, and the decimal is always at the end, and you always move it 2 spaces to the left. That gives you 1.5 or 1.50. They're both the same. So 150 is 1.5, then we simply get 1.5 of 28. Okay, that means of is translated into multiplication, so we multiply 28 times 1.5. Again, we need to remember that there is one decimal place right here. Okay, so 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 2 is 10, carry 4. That should give you 140. So here's 140. Okay, and then we get our 1. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. So we get 28, which gives us 42. Okay, so if we add them all up, 140 plus 28, it should give us 420. But since there is one decimal place, we need to keep that decimal place so it only becomes 42.0. So basically 150% of 28 is 42. Okay, do the got it, and let's see if you understand example 3 and 4. Examples 3 and 4. Finally, last example, example number 5 is always going to be a word problem. So refer to the graph. This is the graph that we're talking about. If 275 students took the survey, how many can be expected to have 3 televisions each in their houses? So let's take a look at the graph. So this is survey results of number of televisions in the house. Okay, 0 TVs, 2%. Okay, 1 TV, 9%, 2 TVs, 17%, 3 TVs, 23%, 4 TVs, 20%, and more than 4 TVs, 25%. Okay, and remember that each of these little pictograph icons equals 5%. Okay, so this is a pictograph, okay, where the TVs, each TV represents 5%. So let's go back to the problem. If 275 students took the survey, how many can be expected to have 3 TVs each in their houses? So we're looking at the pictograph, and we are looking at this row right here because it's asking for 3 televisions in each house. So you have 23%. So all we need to do here, okay, is we simply write the percent first, okay, as a decimal, then multiply. We're using method number 2, okay. We know that 23% of 275 is the same as 23% times 275. So we convert 23% into a decimal. That becomes 0.23 times 0.275. Again, if you use your calculator, 0.23 times 275 will give you 63.25. Okay, so if we answer this question properly, it's going to say that about 63 students can be expected to have 3 televisions each. Okay, again, we round down because it's 0.25. Again, of course, you cannot have 0.25 of a student, so we round down to 63 students. Okay, so do the guided problem and let's see if you understand this example. Okay, and that's it for this lesson. Thanks for watching.